Anybody ever done a soil test? Once, and that's going to be in that soils class. But what I can tell Clemson Extension, who gets the sample, check it for pH, number one. Anybody know what pH is? That's okay. Generally speaking, good pH is 6.5. Anything below 6.5 is not great. Anything above 6.5 is not great. The closer you get to 6.5, the better your crops will work. And there's a whole bunch of chemistry going on there, but 6.5 is where you kind of would be perfect. You may never get it perfect. Anything around 6 to 7 is great. But we'll pull a soil sample, check for the pH to see if we need to put any lime out. The second thing I will do on my soil test is say, look, I want to grow corn, I want to grow sunflowers, I want to grow sesame seed, I want to grow brown top millet. And Clemson Extension will send you back a piece of paper that says, if you want to grow those crops, this is how much fertilizer you need, which makes everybody's life so much easier. So then it's just a math problem. So do your soil test, figure out what crops you want, and they'll calculate exactly how much fertilizer you need. So soil test, pH checking. You want to buy the best seed that you can afford to buy. Anybody ever bought a bag of seed corn? Or anybody know how much a bag of seed corn costs? About 300 bucks. Last time I really paid attention to an invoice. It's gotten super expensive. But it's got all that engineering into it to keep the bugs out of it, to be able to spray it with Roundup. So buy the best you can afford to buy. Don't cheat on buying something, or I got some leftover seed from last year. Never do that. You know, if somebody's got discounted seed, which is probably leftover from last year, spend the money, get the stuff up front, so you know. A lot of times, once you get something planted, there's no going back. So picking out some type of seed, figure out what you want to plant. About all we do anymore is corn, sunflowers, and brown top millet. And there's reasons for that. And I'll circle back to that shortly. You need to know some seed rates, how many seeds per acre you put out. That's how you figure out how many bags of seeds you need. Fertilizer, there again, you take that Clemson Extension page, and it will tell you how much fertilizer you need to put out. And then the timing of the fertilizer. For example, on their recommendation for us, it's just, for example, say it takes 100 pounds per acre per year to make that corn, which is not the case. What we'll do is we'll do 3 different applications. It's like you sitting down and eating a steak dinner and you going for the dang jumbo 96 ouncer and getting my free meal. You can't eat it at one time. Now, if you have 3 shots at that, you can do it every time. Similar to crops in the field, there's only so much fertility or fertilizer they can absorb at one given time. So a lot of times it makes sense to split your application up to where it's getting a bang, it's getting another bang, and then it's getting a final bang. And there's ways to look at that soil sample and figure all that stuff out. Will y'all calculate fertilizer in class? Y'all do any of that?
Not in this class.
Okay. Well, if you ever get in that position, one of the best things, best tools that y'all got is pick up the phone and call somebody. And I do it every day. Man, how much fertilizer did you use when you did this? Was it a split application? Blah, blah, blah. Don't hesitate to call people. Pre-merge chemicals. Anybody know what a pre-merge chemical is? Some of these guys that may have planted before know what a pre-merge is? Or a pre-merge chemical is for weed control. And typically, if you look out here, is this the only field y'all been to?
They went to Kayla's.
Was it clean, dirty?
It was pretty clean. They were working it.
Okay. They cultivate?
Yeah.
All right. We don't do any cultivating here. That's where you go through the rows and get all the weeds out of it. We do everything with a pre-merge chemical. And this is fairly clean. You know, I've seen this field so deep you couldn't even see the corn in it with weeds and whatnot. So there's some pre-merge chemicals you can put down in front of corn, behind corn, with sunflowers. All that is good to do. Old school method is cultivating. All my guys love to cultivate because it's fun. And all you do is put a tractor with something similar to a hoe on it and run it back and forth, back and forth. It's a lot of fun, it's relaxing, but it's a waste of time, in my opinion. You can put some pre-merge chemicals down. You never got to get back in the field. You don't have to disturb that soil again. You take moisture out every time you disturb it. You promote more weed growth every time you disturb it. So pre-merge chemicals normally can buy you a whole growing season if you calculate it right. And by and large, this is clean. two reasons that's important. Number one, the weeds aren't eating your fertilizer, your crops are eating the fertilizer. Number two, dove want to be on clean ground. They're not going to land out there in those woods behind us. They're not designed to do that. They want to be on open, clean dirt. And in a situation like this, right here in front of this sign that says BA and CDEF, that's a strip of sunflowers, or what was a strip of sunflowers. They can get on that ground. They're not like a chicken or a turkey. Chicken and a turkey got legs up front. They can scratch. They can move everything out the way and eat. That's why turkeys live in the woods and doves don't. Dove's feet are much further back, better for flying. If you think about it, turkeys don't fly that far. Chickens really don't fly a whole lot. But the dove are going to be further back for flight. But with that being said, they cannot scratch. They can do moderate scratching, but they're not scratching through here picking seed up. So if your field is clean, it's more advantageous to the birds, therefore you'll have more birds. Make sure, I got on here the planting instructions. Make sure when you set your planter up that you're not swagging it. Don't guess what you're doing. If you don't know, call somebody, look it up on the interweb anymore. All these planters, I don't care if it was made 20 years ago, you can find some instructions on how to set it up. This stuff is so expensive. You're talking roughly $500 an acre to plant corn. You don't want to screw it up, especially if you've gone and thrown pre-merge chemical on it. The way that pre-merge works is once you plant, you spray it, you can't plant it again because that chemical's out there and it's going to stay out there. So read the label. Pesticide class, we've had that?
Next semester.
Next semester.
Yep.
Okay.
Read the label, some of them have done their herbicide label lab.
Okay.
Some of them have not.
Any questions? I know I'm kind of talking fast.
Does that pre-merge chemical ever affect the corn?
No.
No.
It does not, but if you got a plant back over it, most of that stuff you'll plant your seed and then you spray on top of it. Okay. Now if you come back and try to plant that seed through it, it will not grow. Okay. It damages it. Some of it may come up, but by and large it's going to start off hurt and probably not going to make. The two primary ones we use is atrazine and dual. And you can mix the two together. We'll spray that over it all right off the top, and then once the corn gets up yay tall, the last time we put that last little bit of fertilizer out, we may spray it again with atrazine. Once it gets up out of the seed, you can't hurt it with atrazine. Okay. Now there is a pre-merge chemical we use out here. This nasty looking stuff right here is kind of red stalk. Anybody know what that is? That's pigweed. That is the scourge of the southeast. And then this real tall green looking stuff in that little row of corn right there, it's really tall. That's hemp sesbania. It's taken me forever to figure out how to get rid of that stuff. There's a pre-merge chemical called Valor that we use. You spray that stuff, you gotta wait a minimum of 30 days to plant it or an inch of rain. So if you're not paying attention, spray that and go plant through it, you're done. You just wasted a whole pile of money. Read the label. Whatever you do, read the label. Don't shortcut anything. Calibrate all your sprayers. Don't take a chance on any of it. Growing season is kind of my next little topic. Working the field is the very first one. You'll notice I don't have anything planted right up against the vents. Number one, to keep stuff out of the vents. But number two is we'll try to keep that whole road around this whole thing plowed. As I mentioned earlier, birds like clean ground. It's a good way to start attracting birds. Clean ground, they can land anywhere, walk out into the crops. Clean ground, clean ground, clean ground. Chemical application. After you do your pre-merge, like we mentioned a little while ago, we can come back through here, Roundup ready corn, spray Roundup. We may throw some atrazine in it for that last little pre-merge. Sunflowers take a different chemical, so keep that in mind if you're rotating crops through the field. Some will be tolerant, some will not be tolerant, which is probably pretty much why we do corn and sunflowers only. But they take two different type chemicals, so do keep that in mind. Fertilizer, as I mentioned earlier, we'll do multiple applications. The thing about the corn and the sunflowers, everybody know what nitrogen is? Nobody knows what nitrogen is. That's what really gets plants growing. So what everybody likes to do, not just me, it's everybody's doing corn. At the very last few days that you can actually ride over that corn without knocking it down, you want to throw another application of nitrogen. It's really quick. It's really, it doesn't last very long. And if the plants are really tall, they'll suck it all in. And this is normally going to be July, and it starts making ears in August. That last little bit of fertilizer is what that corn really likes. So you got to keep that in mind. So multiple trips through the field is what you're looking at. Post-growing season, field manipulation. Anybody know what field manipulation is? That's one of those fancy legal words to get you in trouble, field manipulation. There's laws that say what you can do and what you can't do to a dove field. Manipulation. For example, manipulation would be I could come through here and bush hog that corn down or silage chop it to scatter all the seed for the dove to eat. That makes sense? I can't pick that corn, take it outside the field and go, oh no, I made a mistake. Take it back and put it back in the field. That's an example of good manipulation and bad manipulation. As of about 2 years ago, the DNR, maybe 2-3 years, it all runs together, they passed a new law about overseeding. Anybody know what overseeding is? No? As of October 1st, they will allow you to make a single pass in any dove field using a normal agriculture process, which means you can spread wheat legally now for dove if it's done based on their specifications. So it's not completely, that's a form of manipulation that is legal. Best advice I can give you is look on DNR website and look at planting dove fields. It'll spell out all the rules to you. So we can actually broadcast bait out here now. It's wheat, but in theory it's bait. But know what you can do. There's pretty serious ramifications of doing it. You can't do sunflowers. If it's something you would normally plant in October, you're legal to spread it at a certain amount of pounds per acre. So keep that in mind. Hunting. Anybody got any general idea on how many people you can put in a dove field? Anybody that's ever shot doves? How many guns can you put per acre? Anybody ever thought about it like that?
As many as you can fit.
As many as you can fit. How many can you fit? Safely.
Per acre,
About 11.
Per acre, probably like 3 or 4.
My rule of thumb is a gun per acre. So you're talking about 43,560 is square foot on that. You're probably looking at 5 times as big as what we're standing in. So this is a 30-acre field. I try to get at least 25 people in this field minimum, and I can go up to 30. As far as hunting goes, y'all probably, if y'all have been in the dove field, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, I know when I was y'all's age, if I went to a dove hunt, it was like 500 people there in a field about the size of this parking lot, which sucks, because you're never gonna get a shot. Well, the opposite is true if you don't have enough people. I need about 20 people minimum. I'd like to have 25 to shoot this field. Otherwise, if there's not enough guns in the field, the birds figure out where they can land and they start landing and you're done. It's just like being in a field with too many guns. So kind of my rule of thumb, and I'm not gonna say it's right or wrong, I've just been doing it, is about a gun per acre. And that seems to keep everything moving pretty well. For our big Labor Day dove shoot we do, I'll actually set a big tent up in this mud hole that you're seeing. And this is where it's going to differ from anything y'all probably ever been to. I work for somebody. It's got to be the Augusta National every time he's here. It's got to be right. We'll set a huge tent up here, tables and chairs, coolers full of water. Everybody's going to have a dove stool, whether they bring one or not. The dove stools are going to have shotgun shells in it. They're going to have water in it. They're going to have robo decoy dove in it. Absolute everything. The devil's in the details. If you're working for the DNR, none of that matters. You're checking people as they come in, and that's good luck. If you're doing it commercially or privately like I'm doing, it's 100% first class. As you can see, the signs. The rule of thumb is if somebody shows up here and wants to dove hunt and no employees are here, they can figure out where they're supposed to go. We do a little lottery draw in a bag on what stands to go to. So any of that, we try to be really first class. We'll put barrels out there for dogs to get water. And that little lottery bag that everybody draws a number, we got a cheat sheet that says number 5 has got a water bucket at it, number 29's got a water bucket, et cetera, et cetera. There's not a whole lot of people that show up with dogs, but if I see a couple guys have some dogs, I'll go ahead and dig through my bag before the lottery and make sure that person's gonna be close to that water bucket. So if that dog's going out and retrieve, he can get it, or I'll put him right there where the water bucket is. I also have another, it's actually not in a bucket, it's a barrel like that white one right there. That dog can jump in the top of it and lay down. And as long as they can get their belly cool, they'll cool off like that. Details. I normally have an employee sitting up here, and everybody that walks in this field's got to tell me how many times they shot, how many birds they shot, how many birds they found. Every one of them, I don't care who it is. They all got to tell me what they've done. We record everything. And the reason I do that, and if you're ever doing a commercial dove field, everybody's going to, typically they're going to tell you what they shot. But at the end of the day, I ain't had no shots, but dude, you shot 2 boxes of shells. Just because you didn't kill anything doesn't mean, it wasn't a good shoot. I can't pull the trigger for you. And I've actually done this commercially, where people would come in and pay me $100 a day to shoot doves. And you're talking about a considerable amount of money. And we had a money back guarantee. If you didn't have a good time, I'd give you your money back, but you'd never set foot on property again. Now, if it was a bad day, I'd give everybody your money back. But there's no such thing as a bad day. If they show up, it's hunting time. If it's bad, you just cancel the hunt. That's what I do. I'd rather call my boss and say, dude, we're not doing this today. Let's reschedule. It's a real inconvenience, but I'd rather inconvenience them on the phone versus them showing up and sit out here in the hot sun for 2.5 hours and shoot 20 times. You take your medicine when you got to take it. Types of guns. What types of guns do people use to shoot dove?
20 gauge.
20 gauge. What else?
12 gauge.
12 gauge.
14.
16.
14.
410s.
10 gauge if you want to be big bag.
I won't disagree with you because I've seen it.
Yeah, if you want to be big bag, go there.
28's another one. Those are kind of the four or five common guns. 16s. With that being said, I try to have all those kind of shells. Some of them are really expensive, like the 16 gauge, the 10 gauge, and the 410 and the 28. There's not going to be a lot of people shooting those, so I may only buy a case. But like 12s and 20s, what's the pickup truck doing this when we pull up? There's cases of shells in there, and nobody can shoot dove. I shouldn't say that. There are a few people that can walk out there with 15 shells and come back with 12 to 15 birds. But by and large, including me, I can sit out here with 2 boxes and I might scratch out 15. But in that situation, commercial, if it's just good old boys, good luck, boys. You're on your own. But for what I do for a living, there's nobody wanting water. There's nobody wanting shells. If somebody comes out in the field and we're recording their data down and they've limited out in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, my guys will automatically know what spot they came out of, and we'll go find somebody who's not getting a whole lot of shots and start moving them around. That way, everybody's going to have an opportunity. And at the end of the day, what that does is that gets all my employees out of here and at the house. We don't want to sit out here for 3 hours. We'd rather sit here for an hour and a half. The details. Somebody's not getting any shots, move them. Somebody's got a good spot when they come out, move them. If the way, if you're sitting here and we notice there's a whole bunch of birds landing somewhere else, we may go pick somebody up and take them out there because we don't have a gun in that spot. If we need 30 people and we only got 20, you got gaps. So we'll strategically start moving people around in that regard. How many shells can you legally have in a gun in a dove field? 3. Always check people. What always gets people is turkey season is when? It's in March, April, typically. How many shells can you have in a gun in turkey season? 5. So the last time they touched that gun, they might have been turkey hunting. So inevitably, somebody's going to show up down here, hadn't touched a gun since turkey season. not even know it. Game warden shows up, starts checking guns, ticket. Nothing intentional there. And they probably don't even know they can put more than 3 in it. They just forgot. So in a situation like that, good old boys, good luck. But my guys, I'm always, check your plug, check your plug, check your plug. That's something that'll get you right there. But it's expensive. As far as safety goes, anybody know what low birds are? Pretty self-explanatory. Those who've never been dove hunting, what doves do a lot of times, there was a group that went across the field a minute ago, but they will actually come in and get really low to the ground, and they may fly all the way across that field, which is fun. It's easy to kill them, but the problem is if they're flying right there, hell, there may be 3 people over there. So low birds, normally, if we see that, somebody's gonna start hollering. And if you're hunting with a good group of boys, as those birds are coming, everybody's hollering low birds, low birds, low birds. Never want to shoot like that. I was in Montana August, September, and one of the guys I was with got shot on a low bird. I don't even think I told you that. Got shot in the face. That'd been Keith. But low birds, and it's typical, you got a gentleman's agreement when people go into the field, low birds. If they've never dove hunted, I don't mind pulling them off to the side and kind of go through a few things. I mean, dove shooting's fun. It's a kid's game. Teach them. It's y'all's responsibility in my situation. Maybe not with the DNR, but in my situation to provide that information. Just as bad as low birds is high birds. And all that means is there's a bird way up in the air, and people sit there and shoot at it, and I'm like, there's no way. But that same group of birds, if you don't shoot at them, are going to land at the other end of the field. And somebody else is going to get a shot. So high birds, low birds. For novices, none of them know it. Coach them up. I always do a big safety lecture before I bring people down here, and we actually meet at another building because I don't want people coming here because they're going to be all excited and then nobody's listening to me. So we'll meet at another building. We'll gather around like this. I'll say, gee guys, limits today is 15. How about only shoot 12? I don't care what the feds say. I only want to shoot 12 out of my field today. And then I'll tell them about low birds, about high birds. Make sure you check your shotgun plugs. Gee, I got dove stools. I got water. I got water for your dogs. Everybody get a ticket. For your deer or for your stands. Anytime you can keep that separate in a public kind of situation or commercial situation is good. Because once they get here, they're grabbing guns, they're grabbing dogs, they're grabbing kids, and they're trying to get to where they're supposed to be going, and nobody's listening. So, ever in the commercial business, keep that in mind. And that goes for everything, deer, ducks, turkey, quail, it doesn't matter. Try to give people safety or instruction prior to the event that what you're doing. I know I just kind of chewed through that fast. I normally say after my 3 rules, 4th rule is if I get to talking fast, stop me, which I failed to do today. Is there any questions on this? And I'll answer anything that pertains to dove fields.
Y'all have a shell limit here?
I do not. Now, I will tell you this, in my duck pond, I give them 16 shells. If they can't kill a limit of ducks and 16 shells, even the boss gets 16. And I catch static every time. But shooting too much is terrible. And I can't shoot. 16 shells, I might get me 2 or 3 ducks. But if all you got to do is shoot 6, that's not quite 3 apiece, but it might be 18 I give them. But no shell limits. DNR's got a limit typically, I believe, with a box of shells maybe. And that's just to cut down on
2 boxes in a public
the
field.
sky busting, the junk. Good question though.
Where would you say the best spot in this field is?
It varies. Everybody loves to get on that on that power line. There's no shade on the power line. So you have somebody like me, I want to be down by one of those trees and just kind of take my time and pick at it. But any of the power lines, but with that being said, you can get on the corner of the fence where all those trees are. Like I mentioned earlier, those birds will light in those trees. That may sit there for 20 minutes and then they'll pitch in. Another really good spot is that tall timber. If you get inside a couple rows there, what happens is these birds will come in from the east. really high. You figure that's 160, 170 feet to get up above those trees, then they drop straight down. And when they drop straight down, they're gliding, they're not beating their wings, and you can smoke them. And that's a really good spot right there. But typically speaking, there's really not a bad spot in this field, which is good. Good question.
How much corn do you have plant out here compared to like sunflowers?
It's more corn than sunflower. I think we're doing 3 bags of corn, so that's going to be about 13, 14 acres. 1 bag of sunflowers is about 8 maybe. And as you can see, everything is rotated. We like the corn because it's structured, people can hide in it. Sunflowers are great, but I'm telling you, after Labor Day, they're gone. Now you can walk out here now and there's still some in there, but they're just basically gone, whereas this corn will last all winter long. Unless we get a bad storm to blow it over. We got a silage shopper and we'll come in here about once a week and blow that corn out. Dove hunting in January is smoking good. If you got corn left and can put it on the ground, those birds want to hit it first thing in the morning. And for me, doing what I do, my guys, as soon as their boots hit the ground in the morning, they want something to do. So if I can bring them out here for 2.5 hours in the morning, take them to the house, get them some breakfast, go take them bird hunting after that or quail hunting, my day's done. Good dove shoots, late December, January on corn. At my planting rate, a bag of corn will be about 3.5 acres.
How often do y'all hunt out here?
Not enough. We did a big powwow at Labor Day. We were supposed to be shooting, season goes out last Saturday went back out. We wanted to do another shoot, but the boss has got some traveling going on and he just didn't want to fool with it. So we have slowed down on grinding corn and everything else because if he's not going to shoot it for a month, we're not going to waste the corn. We keep a pretty good resident population of birds, and there'll be plenty in here this afternoon to shoot, but we won't shoot again until Thanksgiving. We'll shoot that week of Thanksgiving, and then we'll pick it up after Christmas again. Good question. So we're only shooting 2 or 3 times a year, and that's probably $12,000, $13,000 sitting out there. Do the math. Yes, sir.
Are your duck impoundments far enough away from here where the shooting here won't interfere?
Yeah, and normally we primarily shoot ducks in the morning. Not to say that we hadn't shot them in the evening, because I've shot them in the evenings. And normally we're doing this in the afternoon until late season. We do it in the morning, and it's just that's a whole separate issue right down there. Ducks are much harder to deal with than dove. Sidebar, wood duck at 3 pounds eating a pound of food a day. A dove's not. So normally by late season, our ducks have eaten everything we got and they're gone. But for me, that's not that big of a problem. But very good question. You wouldn't want a duck pond sitting right there, I can tell you that.
How would you get on the list for a shoot out here?
You can't.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that. I like to keep a list on my desk of 10 or 12 people that I know that if my boss shows up, I put him in charge of all the invitations about a year ago. And the very first shoot, like 10 out of 30 people showed up. And going back to what I said a minute ago, 10 people in this field, we're not doing anything.
Right.
So I like to keep a list of about 10 people that I can call on a moment's notice and say, you want to shoot dove tomorrow? Yeah. And they show up. Good question.
Have you always had it set up this way, or did you have to go through some different trial and errors to find
As
out
far as
this is what works?
how we're planting it, no, that's a good question. I used to do all this myself, which I just don't have time anymore, so one of my employees does it. He and I, we on the same page, but I would do it a little bit different than he would, and he would do it a little bit different than I would. But generally speaking, it's similar. And everybody's got a little different twist on how they think. And, I had really good shoots. He's had really good shoots, so it's neither wrong nor right. But I may do stuff different, and he does stuff different.
Why don't you talk to him about Benny and why you stopped planting Benny sesame?
Sesame seed?
Yep.
Y'all know what that is? Everybody knows what it is. Everybody's eating it. I bet. comes on hamburgers. Those little white things that come on hamburger buns, those are sesame seeds, or Benny is the ag name for it. Benny's a really good crop. It makes a ton of seed, those little seeds on your hamburger. But what happens is you keep planting that year after year after year, it starts getting a blight or a wilt to it, that it's getting some junk in from the ground like nematodes and corn. And sooner or later, you run out of room to rotate it, and you end up having to spray chemicals, fungicides, all this other stuff, which you normally don't have to do on corn and on sunflowers. There's a reason you're paying $300 for that bag of seed corn, because it's got genetically modified genes in it that prevent nematodes or wilt or some of this other stuff. Good question, Miss Ruth.
Thank you.
Good comment.
How are you doing about the hog problems and everything?
That's actually why, 2 reasons we got this exterior hot wire. Number 1, keep my cows out, and number 2, before the cows, it was the hogs. And all you can do is shoot them when you see them. Run them with dogs. That's a tough nut to crack right there.
Mm-hmm.
Extreme prosecution. Little boy shot one the other night. Dana's little boy.
Yours too.
Got him a big one. But deer, if you don't have a fence up and you're in South Carolina, you're probably gonna fight growing sunflowers. I'm not gonna say you can't grow corn, but you're gonna struggle growing sunflowers. And once they nip that top of that sunflower, it's never coming back. Corn can manage through it a little bit. They typically will not forage out into corn and eat it. They'll stay on the sides. Or sunflowers, they'll go all the way through it.
You ever find any quail nosing around in here?
It's really good breeding habitat out there. So yes. As a matter of fact, I talked to a buddy of mine yesterday about all the chicks he'd been seeing in his dove field. Duck ponds, dove fields, they love it.